retreat, we had mentioned that sometimes if people have questions that have to do with some daily life challenges that they go through or issues that concern them on a daily basis or in their community, then there's a section for that. So we have a question of this kind here, the first question, and it's the following. It's about the stories about Ahlul Bayt. So there are sometimes stories and enactments about the Ahlul Bayt that are incorrect when it comes to Ashura narrations, as explained by Ayatollah Murtada Mutahhari's book entitled Ashura Misrepresentations and Distortions. How do we approach this, knowing that it may be causing injustice to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, while also maintaining unity and taking into account the different Shia schools of thought?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you. There are a few points. First, we have to make sure that we don't precede ulama. And I mean by ulama, real and true learned people. It's not that every speaker is an alim. Even it's not that every writer is an alim. Nowadays, to publish book is easy. In the past, without having lots of credit, you could not publish a book. Now it's easy. People even publish the books that they have not written. With electronic and digital printing, they just put things together, copy paste, and chapters from different books, and they publish a book. It's not that every speaker or everyone who has a book or few books, is an alim. If there is real ulama, the real experts in the field, if they have raised concerns about some historical issues, then that's the time that we have to be careful, and at least we should not give publicity to such controversial issues. And if there are people who, for example, mention these things and publicize it very respectfully and as much as possible privately, we can say such great scholar has raised concern about this issue or has criticized this issue. Sometimes something is baseless, sometimes something is baseless and harmful. So you can have different strategies to deal with these things. But please don't make this issue an issue for fighting and division in the community. So first of all, try to check with ulama, try not to precede ulama. And secondly, if you have really concern of ulama and criticism of ulama about this issue, and they said this is harmful or this is baseless, based on that, take appropriate proportional measure and nicely, as a brother, as a sister, privately as much as possible, discuss with the speaker or with the people who are responsible, and inshallah gradually things will be sorted out. We don't want to fight, and we don't want to divide, and we don't want to offend people, because if someone is emotionally hurt, then they may not listen to your opinion, even if it is true. As much as possible, make sure not to be confrontational as much as possible. Unfortunately, some people have this misconception that they think to be frank is a requirement of honesty or is a credit. So, I am very frank. Who said that to be a frank person is always good or most of the time good? No. What is important is you have to be polite. Sometimes to be polite requires to be not frank. You have to be indirect. You know all the story of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein when they saw someone, an old person who was making mistake in making wuzu. So he was making wuzu mistaken way. How did they approach that person? They said, could you please judge between us, for example, which of one is making wuzu better or which of one's wuzu is good, in a very polite, indirect way. Many times to be frank is not good, I can tell you. Many times to be frank is against actually the interest of you and interest of Islam. Sometimes yes, sometimes you have to be frank because you have tried other ways and they have not worked, or you have a history with this person and this person maybe is not very sharp. Unless you say something very clearly, he wouldn't understand. So there are exceptions, but as I said, to say that all the time or most of the time to be frank is good, no, we don't have such thing. Anyway, let's go back to the issue. So when there are historical issues about life of Ahlul Bayt that our real ulama have raised concerns, then that's the time that we should get involved. If our ulama have not raised concern and still you think there is something that can be worrying you or can cause problem and harm to our community, for example, the community in the West, maybe saying that in the East is not a problem, but saying that in the West is a problem, then you have to share this with such ulama, and after they accept and give you the green light, then again you can start trying to educate people, inshallah.
All right, so next question. The next question is the following. This is a question entitled Between Allah and the Abd, the servant.
Yes.
So when we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows our future,
yes,
do the ulama scholars mean that our future is in the existential sphere, or our future's only existence in the knowledge of Allah? If it is only in His knowledge, consequently every possible existence and every possible outcome is already existent in His knowledge. And because of His graceful nature, He guides us towards the best outcome. Is it like this that we have to understand it?
Sorry, if the last part was if it is in His knowledge?
Yeah, so this question is about...
Didn't we have this question before?
It seems very familiar, honestly. So let's skip it and look at it later.
I think we had this
question.
Yeah,
let's skip it because it hasn't been answered here. I hope that these questions are not repeated. Suffering and trials what humans are doomed to go through. Some places the Quran talks about... Okay, I'm going to maintain the fitrah alive in children. Unfortunately, it seems like some of these questions have been repeated.
Maybe you can start from the end of the list.
Yeah. So we'll start exactly from the end. So question number 8. Question on lecture 21 of Theological Instructions.
Yes.
So in lecture 21, it is discussed that when it comes to intellectual power, it seems that jinn are less powerful than human beings. This might be why human beings can control jinn.
Yeah.
Of course, some people misuse this. Sometimes in the process of jinns, jinns actually take control over them and control them. Yeah. So there's a bunch of questions here.
Yes.
Number 1, can you clarify what is meant by human beings can control jinn?
When there are two people, one of them is more intellectual, more learned, more intelligent, more experienced. All these things can give ability to one who has more such qualities to control the other one, directly or indirectly. Then also we have physical power. When someone has more physical power, may physically control another person, which is something that even can happen in animals. The first group of controlling would not happen in animals, but the second can happen in animal. A more powerful animal can control even or kill or eat less powerful animals. This can happen. In human beings also, sometimes people, because of they have big muscles or they have big weapons, or they try to control other people. But if there is any way of saying that someone as a human influences others, even to the extent that sometimes may control, it's more a matter of knowledge and intelligence and wisdom, which can happen in some people more than others. Even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that this is a part of the sunnah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may make some people more powerful or more capable. نحن قسمنا بينهم معيشتهم في الحياة الدنيا ورفعنا بعضهم فوق بعض. We have distributed their sustenance and we have raised some of them over the others ليتخذ بعضهم بعضا, so that some of them take other people in their controls. So this is possible. What is important is this should be done in a moral way, in a responsible way, according to Allah's will. It's not that because you are more intelligent, then you do zulm to the people who are less intelligent. Or because you are more experienced, you take advantage and do zulm to other people. So, like for example, salesman. If a salesman is very clever or very experienced, should not use this as a reason to cheat. And when a naive, customer comes, or a person who is not experienced, or a child comes, take advantage. This is one. We human beings have been given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in general. I'm not talking about every human being and every jinn. In general, we have more rational power, more intellectual capacity. And therefore, it's possible that some human beings easily learn how to control jinns. It's possible. But they should know also that jinns also can rebel, and if they find some weaknesses in them, especially if they are people who are immoral, if they are people who are after power or something, jinns can use these weaknesses and come up with a counter attack and take their control. This is also possible. This is why we advise people not to get into such things. You want to control jinns, you end up with being controlled by them. It's possible. Like a person who says, I am very clever, I want to use the thieves of the town. Okay, you go and you think you are going to control them, then they may take you and force you to become a thief. So you have to be careful. Anyway, when it comes to intellectual capacity, when it comes to a spiritual capacity, in general, human beings are better, higher, but there are also always exceptions. They follow our prophets, who are human beings. This is a sign that human beings have been able to reach highest levels. But there can be many jinns who are better than many human beings. There are many among jinn who are definitely better than many human beings who have no iman or who have no morality, and so on and so forth.
The next question, in reverse order, is no, actually still with the same question. So part 2, let's see now. In this process of controlling jinn, what does it mean to have a jinn take over and control a human? Perhaps this has been answered. If this were the case, how does this support the concept of human beings are accountable for their actions? They are no longer, so this part. So now if a human being is now controlled possibly by a jinn, then how do we look at the case where this human being is now controlled by a jinn? In this case, if this were the case, how does this support the concept that humans are accountable for their actions if they are no longer in control of their own actions?
First of all, they have a still control. They can repent and come out of the control of jinns. It's not that the jinns, by the force of nature have control over them. They have wanted to follow. Like Shaitan. Shaitan is the greatest jinn. Perhaps in this issue of, evil, the most evil, jinn is Shaitan. But even Shaitan, as the greatest threat, says, "Ma kana li alaykum min sultan." I have no control over you. I have no authority over you. "Innama da'awtukum." I can only call you. Yes, if I go and give my control to shaitan. I say, okay, this is my remote control. Keep it in your hand. Just press the button and I'll come after you. Okay, so whom you have to blame? Shaitan says, La talumuni, lumu anfusakum. Blame yourself. You wanted to be at my service. You came and subscribed to be my agent, my servant. I didn't force you. I didn't have any force. I loved to have you, but then you wanted and volunteered. So, normal jinns definitely have no that much power, even like shaitan. Therefore, definitely they have no control. The control is given by people themselves. This is one point. The second point is that even if a person in the end of the process or middle of process finds it very difficult to come out, or even maybe sometimes becomes ill and cannot understand anymore, again, this doesn't contradict the fact that he is responsible. We have a rule. We say الضرورة بالاختيار لا ينافي الاختيار. If you put yourself with your misuse of free will in a difficult situation that you have no way out, still you are responsible. You cannot say, I have no way out. Okay, why you put yourself in that situation in the first place? I cannot, for example, go to a desert without food and drink and, go a few days, and then in the middle of desert, I'm dying. I say, okay, now, because I have no choice, I'm not responsible. Or because I have no choice, now I want to eat haram. Okay, even if you have to eat haram to save your life, but you are still responsible. You are not like a person who didn't have any choice in the first place. If a person has no choice and is in a situation that has to eat, for example, haram, and for example, a meat which is not halal meat, just to save his life, that much is needed as saving life, he can be permitted. But you that yourself have put yourself in that condition, you have to save your life, but still you have to be also answerable to Allah why you put yourself in that condition. So, الضرورة بالاختيار لا تنافي الاختيار. If someone puts himself in a situation that some jinns can have impact on him severely, first of all, he can come out. As quick as possible, he has to come out. But even if it's difficult or impossible, again, he's responsible. They didn't have any control in the first place.
So now this is a much more, again, this has been touched on to some extent that you have talked about in the third question, the third follow-up. This is actually being asked by somebody who's studying psychology or psychiatry in a professional way, yes. By the way, just to give context. So still, if you might want to shed more light, so the third part of the question is, how do you reconcile this concept of being controlled by jinn with science, although limited, with the science of, although limited, behind mental illness? So this idea of mental illness, when some individuals will claim, so science is saying mental illness, some individuals claim, no, they are possessed by jinn, when in fact they may just be experiencing, for example, a psychosis or other illness, be it psychiatric, neurologic, etc., that can alter perceptions of reality and or result in someone behaving in ways that are out of character, provided there are no drugs or illicit substances being used. So basically, there is a school of thought that doesn't believe in jinns, doesn't believe it exists, doesn't believe all of that is there. There's another school of thought that says mental illnesses can get in the way of a person's judgment and make them behave in ways that are not correct. How do we go about now figuring out what's going on? Is it jinn? Is it a mental illness? Is it a mix? How do we deal with all of these concepts? This is what this question is asking here.
Yeah, for sure, we have belief in jinns, and we know they can cause, to some extent, problems. But we don't believe that every problem is caused by jinns or every mental problem is caused by jinns. Some people, because they don't have experience or comprehensive knowledge, they think every problem is caused by jinns. Especially in the past, when they didn't know the explanation for some illnesses, they said this person is majnoon, means this person is stricken by jinns. But we believe that it's possible to be affected to some extent, not completely, by jinns, but this is not very common. So if someone has a problem, he starts first with doctors. If there is no physical explanation, he goes to psychiatrists. If there is no psychological explanation, then there is a chance that this might be caused by jinns, but not always, not necessarily. It would be very good if we have in community very learned people who know both psychology, psychiatry, and they have also some knowledge of Islam that would help them to identify the root of the problems. Our ulama even mention in their books that although working with magicians or doing magic is not permissible, but they say in every time we should have enough of people that they know magic so that they know how we can defeat magic, or they know some way of controlling jinn so that they know how to bring people out of their control. So we need to have few people in every generation who would help the community with counter, policies and counter, measures. But definitely, many problems have physical explanations and psychological explanation. It's not that everything is done through jinns.
Question number 7. And the last, actually we cannot, we're out of time for question number 7.
Yeah.
We're near 9 o'clock. So if our dear students can just present themselves and tell us their name and their city and one word to share how they feel at the moment.
Beautiful.
That would be great. So I'm Jihad, and I live currently in Toronto, and how I feel is just protected, basically.
Alhamdulillah.